All right. So, always good to turn this on before you start to use it. Okay. So we are going to cover a few topics. We have 2 sign-in sheets. One is for PPE and workstation safety. So I'm going to say everything, and then I'm going to say it again, and then I'm going to say it again, okay? So, and then the rest is on awareness. Awareness of what? Awareness of your role and my role, everyone's role, in product safety. Product safety. So we mean, does our product keep the ultimate customer safe? Right? So we have a saying. I'm going to have 2 sayings that if you realize these 2 sayings, you'll get the whole gist. One saying is, we're not in the fastener business. We're not in the fastener business. We're in the aerospace travel business. And within the aerospace travel business, we make fasteners. So what do we mean by that? If I had a fastener and I said, wow, isn't that a great fastener? And then I sold it to Home Depot, you would not have to be quite as aware of product safety as if I sell it to Boeing or I sell it to Lockheed, right? Because if you sell it to Home Depot, it might hold up that clock. And the clock falls on the ground, the clock breaks. But if you sell it to Boeing or Lockheed, it breaks and the airplane falls down and grandma who's coming to visit you for Christmas breaks, which is a little more serious, right? It's personal safety of our customers. So we say we're not merely in the fastener business. We're in the, what did I say? I said the aerospace travel business, right? Because obviously airplanes require more safety with respect to the public. That's saying number 1. Saying number 2 is layers of protection. Layers of protection. Because we are in the aerospace travel business, we do a bunch of stuff. We have NADCAP. We have AS9100. We have NDT. We do etch our parts. We check our parts every 15 minutes. We have layers and layers of protection. Why? Because we're in the aerospace travel business. So those are the 2 concepts. Okay? But first, we're going to talk about workstation safety and then PPE. So I'm just going to read this. So, workstation safety daily checks. Make certain all necessary safety guidelines are followed before, during, and after starting your process. Prior to starting work, inspect your workstation for hazards. Inspections shall include checks of the equipment, as well as the areas around and above it to ensure there are no conditions which pose a hazard to you or your equipment during operation. Maintain situal awareness during operation for any changes and re-inspect the area after job completion. So this is what this is saying. When you come to work, you take a little deep breath and you look around. And you say, is my guard there? Is there any hanging wires? Is there anything that could pose me a safety risk? And then while you're running, right, I know every operator uses their ears a lot. You hear something, you see something, you want to be aware, right? And here's what I believe most likely happened. The safety committee went on a safety tour, and they said, wow, look at that guard, it's cracked. How long has that been like that? And someone said, oh, it's been like that for a month. And they said, you know what, we need to tell people to be aware of that and surface it because we want to change them. Hundreds and hundreds, there might be 5, 10 things we change a month. So that's what we want everyone to do. Be aware of your safety in your area, right? And the next paragraphs are going to tell us to talk to our leads. So ensure all equipment and safety features of the equipment are being operated properly, are in good working condition, and pose no hazard during operation. Some examples of hazards might include damaged or frayed wires, cables or wires hanging close to moving parts, and missing or damaged guards. Any hazard or unsatisfactory condition shall be reported to your lead or supervisor immediately for resolution. So if we do that, we have this continual improvement with respect to safety. Okay? One other thing, PPE. So, we had an internal audit finding where the auditor walked around and noticed that maybe 25% of people weren't wearing their earplugs. Okay? Everybody's wearing their eye protection, which is good. But we also have an OSHA requirement that if you spend a certain percentage of the time out on the floor, you have to have hearing protection so that you go home or after many years of work here with just as good hearing as you started with, right? So what we're going to do is you all know that we have the sign-in sheet for the daily safety audit, right? When you check whether your temperature and all that, right? We took that form, which has everybody's name on it, and we're going to split it into quadrants, 4 different groups. And every week, me, Brad Borchardt, whoever, Ben, we'll inspect about half of those, a quarter of those names. So that if you do that once a week, over every 4 weeks or once a month, every person will have an audit about whether they're wearing their various types of PPE, which means 12 audits per year, which means that can be tallied, which means you can have an objective score about your PPE wearing for the safety section on your performance review. So what we're doing is introducing some accountability to continually improve our PPE usage, right? Okay, so that is all in this work instruction, manufacturing control, WE 90248, where all these types of global, requirements for us are housed, okay? So, quality policy. I'm going to cover 2 main issues on the quality policy. We want to be our customer's first choice, and we do that by communicating well, having good teamwork, delivering quality product on time, doing these continual improvement projects, maintaining profitability, and 2 that I want to really emphasize today, which is ownership and ethical behavior. So, what do we mean when we say everybody needs to take ownership for their process? What does that mean? It's an actual question. You can answer.
It means I'm responsible for what I do and what I don't do, and I'm accountable for what I do and what I don't do.
Right, exactly. So everybody has to take responsibility, ownership for their process. Now here's the deal. There's a really powerful, even ethical reason for taking that ownership. And it's because you have to do all these things to maintain these layers of protection because we're in the aerospace travel business. So you have an ethical responsibility for owning your process. And the process is articulated in your work instructions that these are all the layers of protection you have to do because you are ethical and you're aware of your role in product safety. Make sense? All right. So that's our quality policy with an emphasis on the ownership concept and the ethical behavior concept. Pretty simple, right? So there's a lot written here. I'm not going to say everything. I'm just going to focus on this idea. Awareness, what we mean by awareness, is understanding why we do the things we do. If you understand why we do it and it makes sense to you, you go, totally makes sense. It motivates you, right? So this statement, awareness of understanding your role in product safety, understanding that role in product safety is in AS 9100. That statement. Every team member must be aware of their role in product safety. how do we make everyone aware? We do this training. That's what this is about, okay? So awareness is understanding product safety, okay? So we're going to talk about something we do and your own awareness that has to do with risks. Risk. So we do this thing called risk-based thinking. Failure of our fasteners on airplanes is a safety concern, right? It's important. This training covers that, and it covers risk assessment, including a weird concept of FOD. Okay? So I'm going to skip this real quick, and I'm going to go to this concept. So this is heading. So let's just say you're a headerman. And I'm not going to use this example. I'll use this example second. The first example I want to use is head protrusion. So you're heading, let's say you're heading a job on size. It's not going to get ground. So you're responsible for the final head protrusion requirement, right? And let's say you use the full tolerance, and some of your parts are undersized head protrusion, and some of your parts are oversized head protrusion. The question is, in terms of product safety, which is more severe? Which is a bigger problem? So I'm actually asking, if we ship to the customer parts that are oversized head protrusion, what's probably going to happen? Here's going to be the skin of the airplane. They're going to stick out a little bit, and they're going to create drag on the airplane, which is going to result in lower gas mileage for the airplane because there's going to be additional drag. And when you're going 600 miles an hour, drag is super important. I ride a bike, right? And when I'm going 14 miles an hour, the drag is kind of hits you hard. But when you go like 18 miles an hour, it's like triple. It's crazy how much the resistance feels. I don't know why it does it, but I can only imagine when you start to go really fast, that drag is super, super important. So they want those things to be perfectly flush for gas mileage, which will ultimately result in ticket prices. Did anyone die? No. So is it a pain? Yeah, you might rank that a 5. What about undersized? Now it's undersized. Still probably would create a little drag. Is that part that has a wall thickness between where the recess is and the bearing surface, is it undersized now? Yes. Is the product now weaker? Yes. Is it because it's weaker, could it break? When it breaks, could the skin start to fall off? When the skin starts to fall off, could it create all sorts of crazy things that all of a sudden the plane clashes? It totally could. Right? Now, if you're making a 12-point on a press made out of Inconel that's actually holding the wing totally on, it's even more important. So not everything is the same. Some things are more severe, and we need to be aware of that. Right? So here's a head crack. A head crack is serious, right? Making an Inconel part on a press, it's got a head crack on it. So, because it's so high, I have to make sure that I can detect it. If I can detect it, this number will go down, and then my overall score will be a lower number, which is good. Lower risk. It's lower risk. So what do? We're imagining the press, Inconel job, big 12-point, right? Holds in, it's got a big old head, real strong part. Holds something seriously together on the airplane. What do we do to detect it? Let's just go through it. We submit a first article, right, to the lab. The lab is NADCAP approved and has a guy in there who's worked for 30 years, okay, who knows everything about metallurgy, a professional that looks at it. We etch our parts once an hour so that you can bring out any surface discontinuity so you can see the crack. We inspect the parts every 15 minutes, right? Then, when it gets to the end, we NDT it, which is another profession that's controlled by NADCAP. Then it goes into the lab again for metallurgical. Then it gets tested on fatigue. Then it gets tested on tensile. Then it goes to the inspectors and it gets a visual inspection again. It has 8 layers of detection. Why? Because we're in the aerospace travel business. That's why we do the things we do. We're in the aerospace travel business, so we have layers of protection. That's what this training is about. Oh, that's why we do the things we do. Get it? That's why you obey your work instructions. That's why when you think of something that could help producing and stop a head crack or something, you surface it and we do continual improvement. Okay, so I'm going to cover one more thing. We're going to skip the defect detection here. This is a metallurgical example of a head crack. And we're going to talk about NADCAP and special processes. So one of the important layers is that Boeing, Lockheed, Airbus, Northrop, in the 1970s, they all got together and said, we need to fix this product safety problem. Because in the 1970s, compared to today, planes did actually fall out of the sky. Right? I remember when I was a kid, there was actually a fastener in a tail of a DC-10 or something. I remember it. It was a big deal when I was a kid. So they created this group called NADCAP. And they created checklists. And you have to pass all the questions on all the checklists because the special processes have to have special levels of control because they affect product safety. And the result is planes are more safe. That's why we do the things we do. So we have metallurgical NADCAP, NDT NADCAP, tensile, and heat treat within here. When we send stuff out for plating, that's a special process as well. And then everyone has to have this one special process, which is the quality management system. So everybody has to do AS9100, which is aerospace standard for the quality management system. That's things we do because we're in the aerospace fastener business. Okay, last concept, FOD. Now FOD is a product safety issue that's not intuitively obvious. It doesn't seem like, how could that little loose burr be a product safety problem? So AS9100 says you have to specifically train on FOD because it is a product safety problem. I'll get there. It is a product safety problem, and it's important. So what is FOD? It's foreign object debris. Something that's not supposed to be there. For us, the main issues are mixed parts and burrs. But I'll give you an example of how they actually came up with some of these ideas and what they actually do at Boeing. So imagine they actually do this. They actually hire some people that are of smaller stature at Boeing because they have really small compartments that people have to work in. So they go into this compartment. It's totally dark, with a little flashlight on their head, and they're installing fasteners. And they pick one out of their bag, and it's a mixed part. And he puts it back in his bag, and he misses. He misses his bag. It could totally happen, right? Because it's dark. And then he can't find it. Right? And then he decides he needs a cup of coffee because he can't do this all day, 8 hours a day, or needs some water. He puts his wrench down and he goes out, he gets a cup of coffee, and the end of shift bell rings, and he goes home. That's FOD. He has a mixed part and a wrench in a closed compartment. If they close that compartment, you're in trouble. What they actually do at Boeing is they leave those compartments open for like an hour, and they go through with vacuum cleaners and with people with eyes, and they go through everything for FOD every shift. They vacuum the entire place every shift. Pretty incredible. So one of the things they're vacuuming for is burrs. So on us, we have these ideas. That's that tool left, a dislodgeable burr. Happens all the time, right? Cell 1, you have an upset, has those little horns on it because the way the knockout pin works and blah, 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 blah. when the punch comes in, it folds that thing over. If it's really small, it becomes a little burr and it dislodges. You put that fastener in a compartment that's an electrical panel, it dislodges and it shorts out the panel. So that's why it's really, really important. That's why we reject, for dislodgeable burrs, metal chips, mixed parts, and then shipping, especially when they package stuff, they have to be very aware if there's other types of debris, even pieces of paper, anything. The little things that are the little packets for the humidity thing, right? They have to be in a special spot so you know where they are, so they can get them out. Okay, so that's FOD. That's awareness. 2 concepts. We're in the aerospace travel business, not just the fastener business. And we have to be aware of that. And therefore, we have these layers of protection that all of us have to have ownership of. All right? Very good. Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you.